Pleased to be back here and to have an opportunity to share with the New York community information dealing this time with my latest publication, the second volume of Browder file essays entitled Survival Strategies for Africans in America, 13 Steps to Freedom. This book comes out, it's essentially a work in progress because in detailing these survival strategies, I went from 7 strategies to 10 and decided to make it 13. Those of you who've read the Browder file can understand why I made it 13. But the idea behind putting this information together has a lot to do with the work that I've been doing over the last several years, traveling across the country and sharing with audiences information about African and African American history and culture, and really trying to do my part to help raise the consciousness of our people. And several issues became crystal clear to me. One is that we need to become aware of the crises that is confronting us as a people. And we need to move beyond just coming together just to talk, coming together just to meet. And we have to put together some clear-cut plans of actions in order to ensure that we will be able to survive, whether it's in New York, whether it's in Chicago, whether it's in LA or anywhere. And so in this particular book, what I wanted to do was to try to articulate as best I could specific issues that I thought were of vital importance for African people, wherever we find ourselves, to begin to become aware of, and then to process within our procedure to reclaim ourselves. The book is broken down into 3 sections. The first section focuses on the African mind. The second section focuses on the African body. The third section focuses on the African spirit. And I believe wholeheartedly that it's important that we reclaim our minds, begin to heal our bodies, and to reconnect with that African spirit within all of us in order for us to begin to do the great work that stands before us. It's also critically important that we realize that we are truly unique people, but we can't continue to talk about what we've done in the past if we are seeing our cities and our communities being destroyed every waking day. We're going to have to begin to do some work. And there's nothing wrong with work. Once you understand the benefits behind work, you begin to develop a greater understanding and appreciation of the time that it takes to begin to develop strategies that will not only benefit you, but benefit the lives of those who will come behind you. And I'm a firm believer that everything that we do, everything that we say, everything that we think has to be done for the sake of those who are coming behind us. Now, I won't be around for another 60, 70 years, but the things that I do will set in motion a process which will benefit my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. And so we have to begin, as the brother said, we have to put our eyes on the prize, and the prize ain't us. You know, the prize is like 7 generations down the road. And when we can begin to shift our focus, shift our consciousness, and then to have that focus begin to affect every aspect of our being, then we can begin to see some specific changes come about in our thoughts and our actions and within our communities. And then we instill those beliefs and that motivation into another generation who now has a foundation upon which to build. And so my latest publication, Survival Strategies, is just my contribution to that effort. One of the things that motivated me to put this book together comes out of an experience that I had 7 years ago. I was invited to do a presentation during Black History Month in Washington at a government agency. I speak for a number of African organizations throughout the city, and one particular organization entitled Blacks in Government has an annual conference, usually in Washington, D.C., and I've been doing that conference for a number of years, and then members of that conference who work within various government agencies throughout the country will usually invite me to come out and do a presentation. So February of 1990, I was invited to come and do a presentation for this government agency. And it wasn't until I arrived at the facility that I was informed that it was a subsidiary of the CIA. It was a real interesting experience. And we got brothers and sisters working in all branches of the government. as well we should, because they have access to knowledge and information which we need to be aware of. But in this particular instance, I was very conscious of where I was and who I was talking to, but I also felt that I needed to do a good job. And whenever I'm speaking at a governmental agency, I'm always interested to see how I'm going to be introduced. Not so much a matter to hear what they say about me, but hear what they don't say, what things they don't include in my bio. But in this particular instance, the guy who introduced me, the head of that facility, a little short, Peter Lorre-looking European guy, he came up to the podium and he introduced me to the audience and recited my bio from beginning to end. Okay? The interesting thing was that he was not reading from anything. All right? And then he changed one last sentence in my bio, in my introduction. He stated that, saying to the audience now, Tony is in the same business that we're in. The only difference is rather than gathering information crucial to the existence of the United States, he gathers information crucial to the existence of the survival of African Americans. And I thought about, the impact of that comment didn't hit me until a couple of days later, once I began to really get a better understanding of information gathering agencies, whether it's the CIA, the FBI, Army Intelligence, or Navy Intelligence. Intelligence gathering agencies exist primarily to gather data on their enemies. That data is then analyzed and then disseminated to people within the agency, who would then determine how that information is going to be used in order to ensure the survival of that agency, of that nation, and of those people. And so when I thought about his comments from that context, I said, well, essentially that is what I'm trying to do, trying to gather information, document information that is crucial to the survival of African people. It's also important that in the process that information be used not just to help us survive, because an animal can survive. We need to move beyond just functioning in survival mode and begin to map out processes of thinking, map out changes in our behavior so that we can achieve this elusive thing called freedom, all right? And we can begin to raise our children within an environment in which they, as free people, will be able to do the things necessary to ensure their development as human beings. All right? And it is a process that we have to go through in order to do these things. So what I'm going to do this evening is to go through these survival strategies and to use some visuals to help illustrate some of the themes, concepts, and ideas that I'm going to be introducing to you this evening. I am, by formal training, an artist, a designer. I have a PhD in nothing. I'm not trained as a historian. I began to develop an interest in African history and culture only after I graduated from Howard University and realized that I had been miseducated. Realized that all of my life, even though I had gone to predominantly black schools, I was learning about other people's history, culture, philosophy, other people's God concepts. And it wasn't until late that I began to realize that I had a history, I had a culture, I have concepts of God that I felt were crucial to my development as a person. And so when I began to shift my focus and study our history and our culture, my life was transformed. Specifically, when I made my first trip to Egypt with Dr. Ben in 1980, my life has not been the same. And so I'm eternally grateful to Dr. Ben and other scholars who have paved the way for me to do the work that I'm doing now. And so as a result of my coming to that level of awareness, then I have sought within my own being to seek out information that is going to help me perfect my essence as a person of color, as a person of African descent. So I submit these survival strategies to you this evening. The method through which I'm going to present this information is through lecture as well as through visuals, because Through my training as an artist, as a designer, my experience in the field of advertising, I understand the power of images to speak to the subconscious mind. And so it's quite helpful to use some of those images to convey concepts and ideas, to reinforce some of the concepts and ideas that I'll be sharing with you. So let me begin by going through these 13 steps, survival strategies for Africans living in America. First step is that racism and white supremacy are the most persistent problems confronting African people in America, okay? For those of you all who live in New York, you know that to be a fact. So it's critically important that we understand some basics. One is that, first of all, there is no such thing as race. The concept of race was created by racists in order to devise a system that would categorize humanity by color and assign the lowest ranking of intelligence and accomplishments to people with darker skin. German scholars at the University of Göttingen in the latter part of the 18th century literally created this concept of race, created the term Caucasian, and develop an educational system which set in motion problems which we are still experiencing today. All right? We need to realize that while there is no such thing as race, and as Professor John Jackson says in his book, Introduction to African Civilization, there's only one race, the human race, which had its origins in Africa. And so if we are familiar with the research done by geneticists and anthropologists and paleontologists, we know that everyone on this planet is of African descent. We were the first human beings. So it becomes critically important that we understand that, but we also must begin to understand that there is such a thing as racism and white supremacy. And I agree wholeheartedly with Dr. Francis Welsing's theory, notion that racism and white supremacy are synonymous, and that they represent an attempt by people who are a minority on the planet to shift the consciousness of people into believing that they are the minority, and to accept the fact that the true minority, the European, is the most intelligent, is the most spiritual, is the most gifted people on earth, which is nothing but a lie. And so when you begin, let me just share some information with you that comes out of a book written by Brother Kwame Ntambu entitled Egypt and Afrocentric Geopolitics. This one paragraph surmises the essence of what I want to offer you with regards to this topic. He says, in 1492, Europeans controlled only 9% of the world. Within 300 years afterward, they colonized 1/3 of global humanity. By 1880, Europeans ruled over 2/3 of the globe. By 1935, they were in political control of not only 85% of the planet's resources, but also 75% of the world's population. In the 1990s, Europeans now control 85% of the world's population through its weapon of geopolitics or the New World Order. Now, the question is, why have they done this, or how have they done this? Because they have been blessed by God with the right to go out and control and dominate people in the world? Or has it been because of the creation and implementation of these systems of racism and white supremacy? That is, to convince the world that white is supreme, white is right, and to educate us, to train us within religious institutions, to believe that lie, and then to submit to these people continually with our minds, with our bodies, and our souls. It is this submission which keeps them in power. And so one of the things that we have to realize is that racism and white supremacy are realities, but they should never be used as excuses for failure. All right? They exist, just like gravity exists. But if you understand the nature of gravity, then you can design a craft that will defy gravity and move you from one point of the planet to the other. All right? So we have to begin to understand the nature of racism so that we can devise strategies to go around it, to go through it, to go over it, to do whatever is necessary to accomplish our objectives. All right? So let's be clear on that. The racism and white supremacy are the most persistent problems confronting Africans living in America, but these problems can be dealt with and can be overcome. All right? The second step advises us to become aware of the power of the media. Why? Because the media, television, film, radio, video is the most powerful, they are the most powerful forms of communication and mind manipulation the world has ever known. Through the media, you have the ability to influence the thought and the behavior of millions of people throughout the planet in a matter of seconds.